Today's mastery objective goes along with lesson 10-2 from their text. The mastery objective is students will be able to graph functions by using function tables. In examining a step-by-step approach to this, we want to first focus in on the function rule of f of n equals n plus 2. Step number one is always to go ahead and create a function table. This will help students be able to go ahead and record the information in a systematic approach and be able to come up with the correct answer. Using the table n, next column n plus 2, which is your rule. So here this is actually called your domain. You have your function rule, and then you have f of n, which is also called your range. The last column is new since we'll be graphing. This eventually becomes your ordered pairs. You take the domain and you take the range. This will become your x-axis and this will become your y-axis when you graph. So step number one completed, we move on to step two. It says choose several values of n and find the values of f of n. These are any numbers at all you would like to use. Ideally, you'll include several that are negative, some that are positive, and then also the non-value of 0. With those placed in there, you have your n values. Again, these are any numbers at all that you would like to create. Using smaller numbers are a little more reasonable and more manageable. You then take those numbers that you selected for your domain, place them into the function rule, and eventually get your output or your range of the f of n values. Moving on to step number 3, you're going to take the n and the f of n and write them as ordered pairs. Now that we have the ordered pairs listed down here, we'll use a coordinate grid to go ahead and graph this function rule. So essentially we've started off with our function rule, placed it into the function table, solved for the function using numbers that we created, that we came up with, took those numbers, created eventually our ordered pairs, which was the combination of our domain and our range, and then used a standard coordinate grid and graphed those. Once we have those individual ordered pairs plotted, we use a straight edge to go ahead and connect them to form a single line segment. Though most of the functions we see are linear, which means a straight line, not all of the functions are going to be graphed in that manner. Some will be called non-linear functions. So let's take a look at this example here. f of n equals n squared minus 1. So let's go ahead and take the same approach that we did on the previous slide, step by step. Step number 1 is we need to go ahead and make a function table for different values of n. And again, these can be any values at all. The lower numbers are more manageable though. So creating again a function table, we have our domain, and these are just numbers that were made up that we just went ahead and picked. Ideally, I would suggest, like I said before, several that are negative, a 0, and then several numbers that are positive. You then go ahead and plug those numbers into the original function rule. In this case, this table does not show that step that we did on the previous slide where it showed the domain, the function rule step by step, and then eventually your range. This combines it, and it just goes straight from your domain into your range. But negative 3, what they did was put negative 3 squared, so negative 3 times negative 3 gave you a positive 9. Positive 9 minus 1 gives us our 8, and that's how we go from negative 3 to 8. Taking those two numbers, we then place them in as ordered pairs. So from here, we go on to the next step. After we've come up with our ordered pairs, we want to be able to graph them. When we do graph them, you'll see that this is clearly non-linear because it is not a straight single line segment of 180 degrees or a line of 180 degrees. Instead, it comes down and it curves back up. That's a result of the squared value that we have right here. Taking a look at the 10-2 study guide, this presents several opportunities for you to pause the video, go ahead and complete steps number 1 and step number 2, and then eventually check your answers also. Now that you've had time to go ahead and complete steps 1 and 2, let's see the solutions and see if you are correct. So again, ideally, you'd want to go ahead and take the time to write out each of these steps, but if you're pressed for time, you can go ahead and skip the function rule step and just go straight from your domain to your range to your ordered pairs. Then on the right hand side, you would go ahead and complete those ordered pairs by plotting in the data points and drawing a straight line if it is a linear function. So feel free to review this video several times if need be to be able to master the concepts associated with this unit.